No, I think it's Tom and Brian, right? Okay. I don't know who the members are anymore. So if we're ready, looks like everybody's in their general vicinity. Welcome, everyone, to the meeting of the Public Works and Sustainability Committee meeting. It is Monday, November 4th. It's technically 5:59. I think I should wait to the regular 6 p.m. here, but that's okay. I think we can. Oh, there it is, 6 p.m. So it's now 6 p.m. We're calling the meeting to order, and we have three three agenda items on our docket today. The first is approval for the minutes from our October 14th meeting. I'll go ahead and recommend, and I'll move that those be approved without the necessity of a reading. We have a motion and a second. Any comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. I will note that Mr. Bullock is on his way, and we have Mr. Evans and myself present, as well as members Strebig, members Marks, and Vice President Baker, and members of the administration. Thank you all for being here. All right, without further ado, I think Member Bullock had some thoughts on both of these, but we'll just have to move forward with them, and if he comes, we'll try to get his comments on the record when he's here. So the first resolution is Resolution 2024-67. This has to do with applying for financial assistance to support the Winterhurst project from ODNR, Department of Natural Resources, Ohio Department of Natural Resources. And what I'd like to do is have the administration present on this, if possible, if we're prepared for that, and then we'll have some discussion, and then we'll make a recommendation. So, Planning Director, is there any comment? Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Director Boss is here, and as you requested, or council did at the last meeting, he has a little presentation as
Excellent.
well as far as an update on Winterhurst.
Assistant Director Boss, at your... Hey, good.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, let me just pull this presentation up.
Take your time, sir.
These are the two. So, Mr. Chair, as you're aware, we have a standing service contract with Macaulay. It serves as one of our, they provide grant writing and recommendation services for us. So this ODNR grant was something that came up on their radar. We had worked with them I guess it was earlier in the year towards a state capital request for Winterhurst to fill some funding gaps that we had. And I'll walk through the 3 years, or kind of our 3-year capital plan that we've been working on since we kind of retook control of Winterhurst Ice Arena in 2023. And this ODNR grant is just an opportunity that we're finishing up the application here. It's due on the 15th of November, requires a resolution of support for it. This is a match eligible up to $500,000 that would provide some of the gap funding that we sought but did not get from the state capital request. So that's kind of the primary reason why we're applying for it. I know ODNR, as we've kind of read through the application, and generally these are for outdoor recreation sites. Macaulay's got is of the opinion, we're following through the application, that Winterhurst will qualify. They believe they qualify based on some discussions I believe they've had with ODNR, and how these types of facilities fill gaps during winter months and times when outdoor facilities are not either available or usable. So that's how we're kind of sliding into this category. So we're asking for your support in terms of the resolution so we can apply for this. But what I've got here is this is kind of an overview of everything that we've spent and everything that we are budgeting right now for Winterhurst. And so just a little bit of background before I dive into some of these numbers for you. But, you know, Winterhurst itself has existed for probably since like the 1930s, 1940s, not the building as you see today, but there was an outdoor ice rink that was adjacent there was an industrial property there, large open area. Over time, that open area was used for outdoor recreation in the summer to support kind of city rec programming, and then during the winter, they would lay down a rink. Over time, they built a brick kind of lobby viewing kind of facility there along Lakewood Heights Boulevard that served the outdoor rink. And then in the early 70s, the city program budgeted, basically demolished the industrial property and the brick supporting facility for the outdoor ice rink and built what we have today, the Winterhurst Ice Arena. Fairly unique in terms of design. It's one of the few facilities in the country that has the ability to connect two sheets of ice where you can continually skate on both of them. So it was kind of an innovative design when it came out. There's also not a ton of facilities that have two full sheets in this area. And so it's great to have both of those sheets, but it is also a building that the city ran in partnership with the schools and the rec department through about from 1975 when it opened its doors until about 1996 when that relationship between the city and the schools kind of parted ways. The city then did its best to manage the facility from 96 through about 2006, 2007. And as many of you are probably aware, the financial conditions that existed at that time with the city, there was an awful lot of belt tightening. This facility was losing money kind of hand over fist, year in, year out. There wasn't a lot of programming support. It was, as we are set up today, with a kind of Department of Public Property, not a rec department. And so in 2008, the decision was made to lease the facility to Iceland USA, who then carried out a lease up until 2023, when just the recognition of their priorities had for some time and were quickly diverging from the priorities of the community and the priorities of the city, to the point where we felt like we needed to act, terminated the lease, stepped in, took back control, and now I work with, we went through a competitive process to select a new, and really develop a new operating model for the facility, and have hired Lakewood Community Ice, who's operated it since July of 2023. And I would argue highly successfully since that point. But one of I guess the point that I'm driving at here is that really since the early 2000s, there hasn't been a whole lot done to this facility. There was some work that Iceland funded in 2008 in terms of the 2 new high school locker rooms, which I'll take you over there now and you can sit in the 120-degree heat. Obviously, some of the work wasn't done exactly well. And then the entrance was reoriented on the facility itself. And so we're dealing with basically, 20 to 25 years of deferred maintenance on the facility. The engineering department had a building assessment done in 2022, which was very fortuitous in advance of our terminating the lease and taking back the facility, because it has provided a very detailed roadmap for us that we've kind of adhered to in terms of the capital plan of addressing the deficiencies of the building. So it's a great document to have. I look at it just about every day to make sure that we're checking off these items as we go through. And so what you see in front of you here, this is from kind of my working spreadsheet that I work and use to develop the budget and the capital plan off of. Our capital plan is really focused on 24, 25, and 26. And so we're really just, really closing out kind of the first year of that capital plan. What you see at the top here in 2023 is everything that we did really when we got into the building and using the assessment, actually got hands-on things, recognized the needs, and worked with Lakewood Community Ice to correct those immediate deficiencies. And that's Things like rental skates hadn't been purchased in probably 40 years. And so the cost to update your rental skates, all of the things that's really to support programming and get the rink operating back up and as a community facility as much as we could in the first 6 months there in 2023. We tried to, there were some things that Public Works already had programmed, like the roof repairs there. We did purchase all new furniture, in addition to like rental skates, just getting new cleaning equipment, new paint, updating the building signage. We were able to capitalize things like NOPEC funding for light installation and some just basic repairs. And at the end of that year, one of the positives that came out of that is I've got the profit and loss statements from LCI, is that we did at the end of 2023, after 6 months, they were able to turn a net income profit of $127,000. So all of that money, for all the times that we were told in that entire process that you can't make money in ice rinks, that they lose money, LCI proved everybody wrong in the first 6 months. All of that money has been reinvested into those black numbers on the left side. So it's not like this is some magic golden goose that continues to produce money for it. The money all goes back into the facility to continue the much needed repairs that are out there. So this past year, what we've done, in addition to the planned roof repairs, was really the focus on the mechanical spaces and kind of the back of the house that nobody really sees, but means a whole lot for the lifespan of the facility and the operation of it by the people that work there. Very expensive. We replaced the entire ice plant, and so that was replacing 3 1974 compressors with a brand new system from Cisco. It is more efficient, it's easier to run. It allowed us to totally redesign the mechanical spaces and make them more efficient to operate. And so that is a price tag that's $2.1 million that we've expended, and we've got another $600,000 on the purchase order right now that I'm just waiting for the final invoice for the closeout of that project. That system was installed on time at the beginning of September, and they are just finishing the final commissioning, as that it's been running since then. So some of the other things that we are still working on right now, we have NOPEC. We're using NOPEC money to replace the scoreboards. Another 1974, 1975 originals. Those scoreboards have been there since that building was built, and they've become an increasing problem. They're very hard to operate. They're impossible to fix when things go wrong with them. And so we were able to get approval from NOPEC to get some high efficiency LED video screens in there that can be replicated. Any scoreboard design you want, colors. You can also show movies on them during like holiday open skates. They're much more flexible, and you can also show advertising on them, which is one of the things that we've worked with LCI towards as another revenue source for the building. And what you see in 2025, our focus is on locker room and rink space renovations. Right now, it's $2.35 million is our budgeted. We had asked and really had been kind of coached to ask for a lot more from the state, and unfortunately, we did not get what we asked for, but we're going forward with a $2.35 million budget. And that's to really address the shortfalls in the locker rooms. The spectator stands in both rinks are 1974 originals, wood, mold problems, lots of issues that need to be addressed with those, and so that's why this is a locker room / rink project. The two blank spaces there for lobby renovation and building electrical systems upgrade, that is where we're targeting this ODNR grant right now for $500,000. And so building electrical, a lot of the panels and stuff are still original to the building, need to be replaced at some point, just so we can stop kind of patching and using chewing gum to keep the electrical system going. The final year in 2026, that's once we get the new locker room spaces and the rink spaces figured out. We held off and wanted to, but the HVAC system needs to be updated, and that's your dehumidifiers and a lot of the things that keep the air inside the rink the way it needs to be to support the ice and the programming. did not want to do that before we had updated the spaces in terms of the configurations of the locker rooms and all those things so that they could design and update the system accordingly. The last thing on there is also the replacement of the final 2 portions of the roof that have not been touched since the building was completed, and that's both standing seams, south and north. The south side obviously is a little more complicated. It has their solar panels on it, and so that it needs to be replaced because both of those standing seam roofs are original. So that's that is the capital plan and everything that we've been spent on Winterhurst, and then that gap right now for the lobby renovation and the building electrical that this grant specifically that I'm asking for support from this resolution is targeted to fund. The only thing I've got is just some pictures to show you this was the ice plant, the mechanical space before. There was a lot of concrete heaving going on in the floor that was caused by inadequate insulation around the cooling returns and supply pipes. It was actually causing the concrete floor to come up. It was about a foot at its peak. And that's the last thing you want to do when you've got like 8-inch, 12-inch cooling pipes going into underneath the floor, is having those pipes being moved by heaving floors. So they actually had to dig all that stuff out, work with our public works guys to get all of that kind of permafrost removed. As they were doing that work, they came across a bunch of undocumented electrical lines and a whole bunch of other fun stuff that we basically had to and made the decision to basically revamp the entire room. And that came into some efficiencies with operations. We decided to put a central melt pit in, which really helps the operators in terms of the use of the Zambonis for resurfacing and provide them the space and kind of lean into some of the electrical upgrades that needed to get done. So there's a picture of them working on the melt pit itself after they've gone through, and you can see some of the new electrical lines and the conduit against the wall there and the aluminum conduit. It all had to be rerouted. And then the new floor was poured, and those new cooling pipes were relocated closer to the wall to provide more space for just general mechanical and building operations work. There just wasn't a lot of space in that room for the guys to work, and so it was a total redesign of the space. And so you can see the Zamboni comes off of one rink, kind of where the picture was taken, and is able to drive over a grading system, over that central melt pit, dump all the shavings, and then go out, and they can then resurface the other rink, basically turn around, and you're only using one Zamboni without having to do like a 12-point turn in the room to get it around and ready to go. There's the new cooling tower on the outside. That's that's one major equipment piece that was replaced. The existing cooling tower was leaking really bad, and it was just causing roofing issues. And so we replaced the roof, we replaced the cooling tower. It's just part of it's just something, when something is 50 years old like this is a major system that should last another 50, 60 years into the future. So that's the new cooling tower. And then this is the new ice plant. So it's a self-contained skid-based system that was bespoke, designed and built for Winterhurst. It basically came on a single truck, was lifted off, and we literally put it on these little tread things, and a team of us pushed it into position, and then you backed it in and then pushed it back into the new room, and it bolted down to the floor, and then they spent the next couple weeks connecting all those lines up. I was out there. I wanted to help. It's pretty cool. This is a pretty cool piece of equipment. Just kind of moving on, important this year that we were able to clean a lot of the old vestiges of the Iceland and some of the old stuff, and so we finally have returned to the old Winterhurst logo, City of Lakewood. So there's now a City of Lakewood logo in the ice, and the new Winterhurst Ice Arena logos at center ice for both rinks, as well as some of the new board advertising on the far side there. A ton of new programming. Lakewood Community Ice is a very unique organization that does kind of the rink operations, rink maintenance, programming, as well as the marketing and finance. And they've got some of the best folks, that live in this area. We have brand new concessions and Zambonis, which is run almost all the time that people are there, which is great to have that. And then I'll just highlight, in terms of the development of programming, we have a membership subscription system that started for all the community programming, but as we kind of leaned into learn to skate, learn to play, and building kind of the base of the triangle, this Mini Monsters program that just started this fall is kind of our flagship pilot for us with the Cleveland Monsters, that they've been kind of willing to go out on a ledge with us and sponsor this new Learn to Play program, put their name on it, to really kind of develop and grow the game of hockey, and using Winterhurst as a base. And it's been great. Got some great coaches there, 2 former female Olympians, and then Russ is our programming director, is a former professional hockey player. And so there's a lot of talent, a lot of experience, of great coaches out on the ice with these little kids learning how to play. And then we just, I've got 2 proposals on my desk that we're going to review this week with Public Works and Engineering for the locker room and the rink space renovations. So as we get that project underway, we will go into some schematic design, finalize the design over the winter, and then hopefully break ground this spring. Because the locker rooms are one of the biggest user kind of facing things that really needs to be addressed right now. Is we have more female teams, more teams in general, and so those great 1974 locker rooms with the 1 toilet and 1 shower just doesn't really suffice. So that is the main focus for this year's capital plan. So
great, thank you, Assistant Director Boss. Can you go back to the slide with all the numbers? Thank you. So some quick top-level things. I'm going to go pretty quick here because we have another item here, and I know my other members have questions on this. Are we feeling comfortable about, and this grant obviously is good, and we're excited about it. We feel comfortable about where the rest of the funding is coming from and getting that worked into future budgets, 25, 26,
yep,
on a good track to get this all. Good.
Yeah, we spent the last couple of months working on this finance in terms of the advance of it, and you'll see it during the budget process.
Good.
That's all. We've worked through all those numbers. So.
Excellent. No, I mean, this is exciting, and one of the things I'm hearing occasionally, and it's usually very polite, I think folks really appreciate the change in management, and it's really the city leading that charge, but the locker rooms come up quite a bit. And I see that, in fact, I just texted one of my friends who was gently nudging me about it and asking me to get some more information on it. I was like, it's coming up. I'll send you some information when it comes up. So I just sent him that via text, and I'm sure he'll be happy to see that's slated for next year. What was the other question? Oh, last question. This is kind of like bigger picture, I suppose, from me. You said 50, 60 years on some of this equipment, potentially, maybe less on other pieces of it. How do we plan moving forward? Once this is all done, it's great. How do we prepare for future administrations to sort of have the easiest path towards maintaining this?
I think that's one of the things that the building assessment from 2022 really helps us out, because it does provide, and this equipment that we're replacing in these major systems, they come with their own warranties and those time periods. So it's just a matter of, you have to do the same thing that the building assessment does. Just don't wait 50 years to do a building assessment. There are standard life cycles and times for each of these pieces of equipment, from HVAC to the ice plant. So all those things just have to be laid out over time in terms of the management of facility.
Yeah.
So
good. So you've kind of laid that groundwork, and I appreciate it. Members, I'll start with committee. Mr. Evans, Mr. Bullock. Mr. Evans.
Just one question. So if you're not able to, for whatever reason, successful in getting this funding, do you have other plans for where the monies for these couple particular projects would be coming from, or just a contingency?
Yeah, I think the building electrical is something that we could potentially pursue NOPEC money in the future for. the lobby renovations, the ADA compliance is going to be a challenge. That might, frankly, it's one of the things that we look for, that the facility revenue to kind of reinvest if we can. But ultimately, I think for 2025, the unfortunate fact is it just comes down to priorities in terms of how far I can get 2.35 million to go. And if not, then I'll have to basically add a 27 maybe to the budget line, or a 27 or a 28 or something, to see when we can address that. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Mr. Bullock?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, administration. David, one of my earliest votes was to authorize the lease to Iceland USA, and I recall the deal. They were putting $1 million in capital in for the HVAC to defog the air. Without going into that, I hope they actually followed through. From the description, that wasn't anywhere near enough, but and then the operating agreement, I recall from discussions over the last couple of years, got handed off and not managed well. Couple big picture points. So, refresh our memories. The current operator is not doing this on a for-profit basis. They're retained by the city, so all of the proceeds belong to the city and come back, and the finance department is not putting those proceeds in the general fund or some other account, but rather those proceeds are going back into the Winterhurst. I don't know that we have an account.
It's an account. It's its own account.
Okay, it is its own account. 123,000 for 6 months is not bad numbers, but we don't yet know, do we, what we haven't been in this model long enough to know what a reliable annual earnings estimate is, do we?
No, we haven't. And I will just say, Iceland was not managed well. The way that the lease was structured was basically there was no visibility from the city's standpoint. And so they did invest their $1 million. It just wasn't maintained over time.
Understood, yeah, and I remember you saying that. So we don't have data from their tenure.
We have nothing.
We have to build back. So what I'm driving at from a macro budgetary perspective, if it goes well, we might clear 200,000 a year. That's not going to support a capital spend of $5 million. Granted that once the facility's updated, we hope it's not going to keep costing $5 million. It's going to be less than that. But conceptually, what we're back to is this is a city-subsidized recreational facility, like a pool, about as expensive as a pool. Is that a fair statement? Maybe the difference is we're seeing more reliable operating proceeds, whereas with the pools, we were often in the black, in the red, and only recently in the black. Actually, that's a point of curiosity. I'd love to find out in season 2 at Lakewood Park's pool, are we once again in the black? But is that what we're looking at? Essentially, the city has shifted back into owning all of the costs, investing, and it's a lot of good work's happening, but that's on the taxpayer, minus what's on the docket today, which is we're seeking external funding sources. If I heard you correctly, it's $500,000 to lessen that $2 million amount in column B, right?
I think that, yeah, it is on the back of the city. This is a city-owned facility. We're responsible for maintaining it. I think the biggest difference between this place and the pool is that this place operates every day from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., 365 days a year. And so it's every dollar that it makes is itself, and that's our goal. It self-supports itself. And that's from, once you get through the capital expenses, it will be self-supporting. That's the way that we've set up the operating model. So
okay,
every dollar
that's an important statement. So we
reinvested.
hope that absent periodic, once every 20 years, breakages of major equipment, the year-to-year maintenance should be self-sustaining.
It's like any other building or car or anything that your car payment, your lease doesn't cover a new transmission.
Right.
So you got to figure out how to pay for that.
But we don't know that yet, but you're optimistic that we're on the right track.
That's all I can work towards, Councilman, so
Yeah,
it's keeping us
okay.
on the right track, so.
So, well, the reason I'm going into that, that's a major shift, because what we had said at one point in time, and your narrative summarized it well, was the city couldn't afford to be supporting that capital spend, nor were we good at the operational day-to-day stuff. So now the mode that we're in is that we are doing the former, and we've got a different contract with the latter that we're more comfortable with. All right, so let me shift gears here. I think it's great that we're pursuing the funds. I'm sure that there's going to be a motion to approve the resolution later tonight with my support as well. What's helpful is to get the big picture from my perspective. What we tend to do is talk about these major projects periodically when a piecemeal element of the broader whole comes to City Council for approval. And then Chief of Staff Story always enjoys my comments of that. Why haven't we been talking about this more? And you guys are working hard at it. What I always appreciate and want is to make an explicit, self-conscious decision about, all right, what is the strategy for this? What decision is the city making? I think the administration's clear on that, and that's what you should be doing. I just want always to have City Council fully committed. Some questions where we might have inflection points to decide would be, you know, how robust are those electric systems? Are we future-proofing them for all the change in the electric industry that's coming, whether that's variable sources like solar? I know we have some on the roof, all that kind of stuff. What about backup power? All those questions. If we make a decision today that the electric panels are going to be here, but if we invested a little higher, we have optionality in the facility. That's an example of a decision where I could think of, for example, that City Council might want to get engaged. I don't think we're going to try to micromanage what model of Zamboni is purchased, you know, but those are strategic questions that I think are pertinent. NOPEC dollars are also, you know, are we being strategic here? To me, that's a strategic pool of funds to be used for any number of purposes in the city. I understand how an efficient, energy-efficient panel qualifies, but NOPEC dollars can be used for many things. Maybe that's a great use of the dollars, but maybe that there's an opportunity cost of using $120,000 in NOPEC here that we then can't use somewhere else. So those are the questions that occur. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you for all the thoughtful and diligent work. You know, I think the administration deserves credit for taking on a bunch of these issues and working really probably 3 years now at this very hard. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Bullock. Other questions from committee members or council? I'll look to leadership real quick, and I know Member Strebig also has a question. Member Baker.
Thank you, Chair Rader, and thank you, Assistant Director Boss, for this overview. You know, I mean, I think these investments are certainly worthy, as you stated, it's a public asset. You know, I do think that, to Councilman Bullock's larger point, having some, maybe during budget time, some analysis of our enterprise funds that goes a little bit, I view this as a business operation almost, right? Like it's a revenue source for the city, just like the pool is. And so rather than kind of like council seeking out that information, maybe if it's just a yearly thing that comes up budget time, or maybe at the close of the season plus 120 days, whatever, when you close the books on this would be helpful. Because I do think that, you know, you're going to want, I think about this like golf at my day job, right? You want a capital you might not be able to pay for with your operating income, but you at least want to break even on the operating side and then kind of decide how you deploy capital based upon the operating income. But these are things you just need to do. You need a chiller, you need a roof, right? Those are things that you can't really wait too long on. One thing I am interested in, less budget-based, more conceptual-based, is thousands of people come into Lakewood that aren't from Lakewood every weekend to use this facility, and then they get back on 90. And they go wherever they're going to go, Cracker Park or downtown Cleveland. What can we do now that we have a better foothold in that facility to be stickier with those folks when they visit us? can we have better signage, better wayfinding, better promotional materials, interior to this redo you're doing in the lobby that like says, hey, downtown Lakewood's a half-mile north, and there's all these places you can go to. There's a new development that will be coming online that you can go and get dinner at, rather than having them go to Westlake or something. So that's what I kind of push you, and I'm sure you guys are thinking about it, but I just, every time I see people get out of that parking lot and zip back on 90, I get frustrated because I'd rather have them stay in Lakewood. So the more we can do for that, the more I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Director Boss, that was a very slick opening of the can. I was looking everywhere to see who had done it. I heard it. Well done. No, President Keppel, please.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I want to make sure we get to our other topic, and ultimately we can come back to this another time if we need to. But I just wanted a little clarity on the line with the ADA compliance and then the building electrical systems upgrade. There aren't numbers going straight across there. Are those included in the 2.35, or we don't have numbers for that, or what's the?
So right now, Madam President, the 2.35, there's three basic goals that we're seeking. One is to reconfigure or renovate the locker room spaces to contemporary design and a capacity. We're actually looking to add a locker room. Those are all on the same level. There's no ADA issues with those right now. The second thing is to replace the spectator stands. That there is an ADA issue that is part of that 2.3. If you're in a wheelchair right now, you can't get up in the stands. You can't even see above the boards. So part of the reconfiguration of the locker rooms includes a reconfiguration of the stand design, the flow, ramps, more ADA compliance in that area. And then the third piece is a training, an off-ice training space, indoor training space, so we don't have kids and teams running in the parking lot or next to Lakewood Heights to warm up for games and for other competitions. Now, depending on where that space could go within the building, that might present an ADA issue, and so that's why we're looking at the lobby. The building is not ADA compliant on the second floor. And so at a minimum, the ADA issue that we would seek, if I don't get grant money to address it, we would likely use revenue circling back to put a lift. Just they're about, I think it'd be like $70,000, $80,000 a lift in the lobby that gets you up to the second floor. Because right now ADA compliance in the lobby, and not go too far in terms of, but it's keeping out some other opportunities and tenants that we've been working on, people like UH, physical therapy, those types of people that you see in these types of facilities, they have a hard time kind of crossing that bridge if you're going to put them in a non-ADA compliant space. So ADA compliance for the lobby is a big thing, but it could be solved relatively simply. So.
Okay, thank you. I bring that up also, just one of our big budget priorities that we said at the beginning of the year and jointly with the administration was working on ADA, and so that's always, and obviously it's always front of mind for me, so thank you.
Thank you, President Keppel, and thank you to the administration for pulling this together. I really appreciate it. I think I certainly support this resolution, and along that line, I'll go ahead and move that we recommend Resolution 2467 for adoption tonight at the council meeting. That's been moved. It's been moved in second. Any further comment on the resolution? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. That motion passes. Next, we have Resolution 2468. This specific resolution would enter us into an agreement with the county to let the county manage the project that is the Clifton Boulevard and Lake Connector between Linda Street and Webb. It would also commit us to covering 20% of the cost of that project, the rest being up to the county. And also, I would note that though the county's managing it, would still have full approval of the construction plans and a process to affect the project through the standards and through our different boards and things. But anyway, I'll turn this over to either the planning department or Engineer Papke or whoever else, or Public Works Director, Chris Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In order to get him out of here so he can enjoy some time at home, I'll allow Trevor Hunt from the county to do his presentation. After he's done with his presentation, both Trevor and I are prepared to take any questions, so.
Thank you. Mr. Trevor, thanks for being here. Take it away.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Trevor Hunt from Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works. I would also like to acknowledge we have Josh Schlaga here from OHM, OHM Advisors. They're the lead consultant here on the Lake Clifton plan. Dave, what is the best way just to tell you to go to the next? Okay. So yeah, you can start, kick this off. So as mentioned, the study area here is Linda Street and Rocky River, extending east to Webb Road. So it's roughly about 1.25 miles long. And what we're looking at is essentially a road diet along Route 2, also known as Scenic Route, Route 6. So what this stems from is largely Cuyahoga County did a lakefront public access plan back in 2021, and this segment of road was identified as a priority amongst that plan. Subsequent to that, OHM led an engineering study for the Lake Clifton connector and how this could be achieved. So there's been quite a few number of studies over the years. In fact, going as far back as 2008 in the city of Rocky River, there's a TLCI, a Transportation for Livable Communities initiative that talked about this greater connection over the Rocky River. So I'll allude to a few other studies as well that have been pointing in this direction over the last 10 plus years. So next slide, please. You folks are all familiar with this. It's kind of an assortment of what you get out there today, right? These photos highlight the existing conditions. So a lot of asphalt, right? When you go over the bridge, 4 lanes, cars are traveling quickly, right? Not unusual to see 50 miles per hour. I've been out there a number of times talking with neighbors, sorting through some of these issues, and you look down the road and a car's there in an instant, right? Showing you that they're generally not respecting the speed limit. So part of the idea that grew out of county planning for this was, how do we rein in traffic? How do we calm traffic down? How do we make better pedestrian connections? I always laugh, the 2 top slides, the one on the upper left, this signage that's out there is indicative of traveling on I-90, right? So it gives the cue to the drivers out there, you know, although it may be marked 25 or 35, but we can go 55 and you know, maybe get away with it. So, and then the other photo is the runner kind of hugging the parapet wall of the bridge, kind of steering clear as far away as from vehicular traffic as possible. So there is a bike lane out there currently for a good stretch of Clifton Boulevard. What we're aiming to do in this is really make that a separate facility where they don't have to worry about possibly car traffic crossing over that line. Dave, if you don't mind going to the next. As I mentioned, it's kind of a hodgepodge. The lane configurations out there from Linda Street in Rocky River all the way to Webb. You mainly have a condition where if it's not 4 lanes, there's a center turn lane, especially in the Lakewood portion. This will, Dave, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. This will mainly clear up that issue, at least for this 1.25 mile stretch of roadway. So what you'll have is a single car lane for the majority of this stretch with a separated trail facility. So overall, you may ask, what complete street elements is this project bringing to the table? What's going to be new about this compared to what is out there today? And I think although it focuses on the bridge, there are a lot of other pedestrian and multimodal enhancements that will take place as part of this. So as I mentioned earlier, a road diet, if anyone's not familiar with that term, it's mainly shrinking the cartway lanes, shrinking the number of vehicular lanes that are out there today. So in large part, it will go from 4 to 2 lanes, as previously mentioned, separated at least by usually 10 feet, or if not more, There might be a couple pinch points, but there'll be a 10-foot buffer where trees and landscaping can grow, but there'll be an 11-foot wide multi-purpose path on the north side of Lake and Clifton, both in Rocky River and in Lakewood. Once you enter into the city of Lakewood, coming eastbound over the Lake Clifton Bridge, immediately you'll come into a roundabout. This was something that was talked widely about at the community meetings. I'll remind, there's been a total of 4 community meetings since 2021 on this project, 2 in the city of Lakewood, 2 in the city of Rocky River. The most recent one in Lakewood, if I'm correct, was May of 2023. So it's been a little while. There haven't been any significant changes since that meeting. I'll point out a couple minor changes as I go through the presentation tonight. But other traffic calming measures, we are installing. Now we did reduce. One thing to mention: there were 2 mid-block crossings due to the ability not to. We couldn't acquire some right-of-way, so that the 2 mid-block crossings were reduced to 1. But I will highlight there currently are none of those, right? So this is an improvement if you look at it from that standpoint. There will be a rapid flashing beacon, which will, if there's a pedestrian within the crosswalk, many of you have probably seen these before. The sensors will go off to indicate that there's a pedestrian crossing within that crosswalk. And then enhanced lighting, the removal, I mentioned the highway signage earlier, there'll be the removal of that. Overall, it will be a much more localized feel. When you're taking away 2 car lanes, what you'll get is less, in my opinion, you'll get less, and I think traffic studies point to this, vehicles will not speed as frequently as they do today. It kind of, for the driver, it kind of narrows in terms of what they can, there isn't as much forgiveness room, so to speak, for the drivers out there. There will be a couple instances where the transit waiting environments will be improved. I think you have out there, we've been working with RTA as well, and we're going to put concrete down where there currently is none. And at all the crosswalks, there'll be the improved truncated domes. So I did mention earlier some of the landscaping improvements. We're looking to make this more of a greening project, so biofiltration, kind of this gray to green, and incorporated within that are tree plantings. I think we've worked not only with the city of Lakewood and the city of Rocky River. I think we've bounced some of these ideas even off of the Cleveland Metro Parks for some of the trees to incorporate. And lastly, what I'd like to point out, and I'll show off a couple slides in my presentation, but once you get into the city of Lakewood, I think there will be a sense of arrival. So there is some signage to indicate that. Dave, if you don't mind moving to the next slide. So from a big picture standpoint, I kind of mentioned some of the previous planning studies, some of the broader implications for this. From a regional standpoint, this will connect into the Cleveland Lakefront Bikeway. And then currently within the city of Lakewood, there's bike lanes on Lake Road. So this will connect into that in the future. What you see here on the image on the right shows some of those planned future connections. So I mentioned some of the previous planning studies. The Community Confluence Plan was a TLCI as well, a Transportation for Livable Communities initiative, which this incorporated Rocky River, Lakewood, and the Cleveland Metro Parks, looking at better connectivity to the Rocky River Reservation, right? How do we improve recreational assets? We have some great assets already existing. How do we improve the connections to those? So this study, the Community Confluence Plan, really highlighted those connections over the bridges, that being Hilliard, Detroit, and the Lake Clifton Bridge. So we're out there tackling the first one, I'm proud to say, as part of this project. In the future, it will be, as you see, some of these are planned, and how do we better connect to those? So, next slide, please. So overall, I mentioned this spans on the bottom left hand of the screen is from Linda Street. You can't see anything. I'll get into some exhibits that will better detail some of the improvements. But Linda Street on the far left side, Webb Road on the upper right, Dave, sorry, you can go to the next one. Thank you. So here at the intersection of Linda and Lake and Rocky River, the pink that you see on the north side of the street will be the introduction of the multi-purpose path. There will be crosswalk improvements to Linda, and then many of you are familiar with the Marion Ramp in Rocky River. This does not incorporate any changes to the Marion Ramp at this time. I know the city of Rocky River is studying that independently of us, but you can see just to the north of where the Marion Ramp is, again, the inclusion of the multi-purpose trail there in pink, a crosswalk there on the far left side of the bottom image. And then that leads you into the Lake Clifton Bridge, the connection there. Dave, if you don't mind the next slide. So from here, we take the 11-foot multi-purpose path, the entire north section of the Lake Clifton Bridge, that's a 28-foot span. So that 11 feet is going to actually broaden out to approximately 28 feet for the entire stretch of the bridge. And then at either end of the bridge, there will be landscaping. That's where the street trees will be incorporated. Next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, kind of the gateway or introduction to the city of Lakewood is this roundabout. From traffic studies, we know that whenever you approach a roundabout, it lowers traffic speeds. It's one of the clear indicators for traffic calming and will, I believe, lead to an enhanced pedestrian experience here at this critical intersection here in the city of Lakewood. So you see on the bottom of the purple indicates sidewalks. I did mention some of those. I believe that's just a grassed area right now for the RTA where there's a bus stop. RTA did want the bus stop to stay west of that intersection, just for the sake of making sure cars wouldn't have to clear the traffic circle and any backups happening in the traffic circle. We believe that would make good sense. I also want to mention in the southeast corner, we've been working, Sean Leininger, the former planning director, and myself had a series of about 5 meetings with the property owners there to ensure they were satisfied with the traffic circle and access to their driveway. They have a shared driveway. Next slide, please. So this is a rendering generally of what to expect with the inclusion of the traffic circle. The medians will exist here. There will be a traffic circle. It will be mounted. So in the case that a car does, mistakenly not see the traffic circle, I wouldn't suggest anyone doing this because it's going to function more or less like a speed table, but you're going to ruin your car if you go over it. But it is mountable if there are larger trucks that need access north to Lake, to the Clifton Club. It is mountable. So next slide, please. So this is just continuing eastward. Again, I had mentioned earlier there are no mid-block crossings in this span of Clifton Boulevard currently. This one, I believe, is at Forest Drive. And then the image on the south, we did have to remove the crosswalk, the planned mid-block crossing at this section. Next slide, please. I would like to point out here, excuse me. So yeah, this is going to be the general condition of the trail. The separated bike facility with a curb, landscaping included, and then the mid-block crossing. The concrete pavement is something additional to note. This will act as like an additional traffic calming measure. So it'll be asphalt. The road will be asphalt, but at certain segments where there used to be so going back to the 1960s before the Lake Clifton as it currently exists was built, there were these neighborhood connections through the city. So the concrete's meant to point out these historical connections that existed previously in the neighborhood. I would like to point out we worked through ODOT and we ultimately ended up where you see the raised curb in the median. That will be a delineator now. There will be a delineator system. So think of the plastic wands. You guys have seen them. They're pretty heavy duty. There's no way around it. ODOT and working through with the City of Lakewood administration, we opted to go in that direction because I think without asking for a variance, which would have been a pretty lengthy process, there's no way to keep the median curb as depicted here in this slide. So that's one item I did want to point out that changed since our last community meeting. So next slide. And then I think this is the last exhibit I have for you guys. So this is the Clifton Road West Clifton Boulevard intersection. This proved to be pretty contentious when we went to our initial community meeting. So you may recall going back to 2021, there was a second roundabout, kind of we called it a peanut roundabout here. Due to the traffic signalization and some of the concerns from the schools, the county moved away from the idea of a roundabout at this specific location. But we have worked with our consultant team, OHM, to improve the signalization here, reduce wait times, and in all cases, we are not diminishing traffic. The level of service exists, I think, if not improved, there might be a minimal. And I think even at this intersection, there's an improvement, but overall wait times will not be impacted by the planned improvements here. So you do see the purple line to the south crossing down West Clifton Boulevard. We want to incorporate this. This was part of the community confluence plan. I believe in the future there's a connection heading south here. So that will be an 11-foot wide trail just for that first block south of Clifton Boulevard. Next slide, please. And so you may ask, where are we today? How quickly will we be moving on this project? Good news is that we're keeping a schedule. So this slide shows kind of the past planning efforts and the engineering. So where we are at today, I'm happy to say that 90% design is complete. We're here in the next week, I believe November 11th, we're going to be putting in for final tracings, which is kind of the last step before submitting to ODOT for our pre-submittal. If everything goes as planned, we will be bidding this project in May and awarding it this upcoming July, and then starting construction approximately a year from now. And it's like a 13-month time frame for that construction, the planned construction. So if all goes well, we will wrap this up prior to the beginning of 2027. And with that, I welcome any questions. And again, thank you for having us, and we're glad to be your partners here.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. A little short on time. I want to thank Member Strebig, who's the chair of the next committee, Public Works or Safety Committee, for giving us a few extra minutes of her committee so we can have some questions. So, but I owe her. That's the deal. You don't have much time to claim on that. That's all right. Let's say, I know this is in Member Baker's ward, and Mr. Bullock also had, I think, some questions. So I'll turn it over to, and of course, Member Bryan's part of the committee. But Member Bullock or Member Baker, do you have any thoughts, opening questions here? Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Trevor, for coming. Just want to say to the administration, to the county, this is a great project. Excited it's moving forward. Excited to see it happening. Disappointed the second mid-block crossing is gone, but I get it. We don't own the property. You need the right of way. The question I have is, and I assume some of this will come out in kind of finalization of design, but you just showed a 24-foot area on the bridge. What does that look like? What are the treatments on there? Is it just stamped concrete or benches, or what are we looking at there on the bridge?
So the planned improvements on the bridge right now are minimal. I will say that. It's essentially what the county is working towards, and this would be an add alternate. We're looking for a fresh coat of paint. So patchwork, cleaning it up, kind of removing the rust from the metal curb grades, some new fencing potentially. That is an add alternate and not included as part of the base bid of what the city's committed to. So if that's done, that will be done separately. The county is studiously working through that with our design consultant right now as we speak. So.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, I know there's lots of funds you could potentially get for it. The question is priorities and where do you want to go? You got a lot of bridges in the county. I just think you don't have many bridges that overlook Lake Erie like that, though. So.
Certainly, and that's part of our thought as well, so.
Great. Well, no, I'd just like to applaud the administration and the county. I think it was 9 years ago, there was a public meeting I saw on my social media where it was like just looking at the traffic study to think about necking it down with the carcinite markers that we have now. So it kind of shows proof of concept that when you go to complete streets, it's you start with some minimal interventions like carcinite markers and narrowing the lanes, and then it really gets expensive when you move curbs, but it kind of shows proof of concept to get you there. Thank you.
Mr. Bullock, do you have any?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the county and the administration. There's a lot of really positive things here. And some of us have been working with the neighbors on the Lakewood side of this project for quite some time. They've wanted a sidewalk. I'm glad the plans have significant pedestrian upside to add a neighborhood character to what had been a historic neighborhood. And in the 60s, I think the fight started in the 50s and culminated in the 60s. A gouge was taken and a highway was carved through neighborhoods, both in the Lakewood and the Rocky River side. And you can see it in the layout of the street. So this is a step towards not only calming the traffic, but restoring a residential character, if indeed we're doing the utmost that we can here. I appreciate the county's leadership because, A, you're involved with the bridge, but B, coordinating both sides of the bridge, our community with our neighbor, I think is essential, and this project is going to have that here. This is the first time I'm seeing this, a lot of information. I'd like to be able to think and absorb and confer with some of the neighbors that I've talked to. Also, I appreciate that there's been public hearings. May 2023 is not a recent public hearing. We're already at the something like 18 months beyond that. I think it's a best practice if we circle back to the public to let them know, here's what we took from the last session, here's how your feedback is incorporated into the plans. These other elements are not incorporated in the plans. We had this identical conversation with ourselves, just internal to the city, about an unrelated project. So, the proposed ordinance says, is asking city council, among other things, to provide consent that the municipality give the county consent to construct the above described improvement in accordance with the plan specification and estimates provided by the county. Do we have those? I don't think I've got those. I don't think the committee has those. I'd like to get copies of those. These renderings are wonderful and promising. That's not the full plan, of course, but I'd like to be able to see that before giving approval, or as we consider approval. That's my main point of feedback, is just to get more informed about the details. My preferences will tend to be like my colleague here who likes more mid-block crossings. I get the fact that we have to, make decisions about those things, and sometimes we don't always win in the dialogue with the state transportation agency. But those are the kinds of things. I'm thankful for the project, trying to get the most quality out of it, or preserve optionality in a future phase if there's a feature or a neighborhood facility that didn't make this version. Can we add it later? Thanks.
Thank you, and I'd be happy to get you the full set of plans. So, and any additional public outreach the county is happy to do.
Mr. Baker?
If we could also get this presentation, it would be great if you sent it to the administration, and then send it to the clerk of council. Would love to have a copy of it. Thank you.
One note, I attended, I think one, maybe even both. It has been a long time. I know you were there, Member Baker, the community meeting about this. And I remember coming up a couple of times, and I've had those conversations, as Mr. Bullock has before, with this community. It's great. They've been waiting for something to kind of knit the community back together, because this road kind of cut through the community many, many years ago, back in the 60s, I think, when this came through. And this opportunity now to knit these two sides of Lakewood back together is really cool, and you're taking advantage of that. I love it. When it comes to the walking path, there were some concerns about lighting it, either lighting it too brightly or not lighting it enough so it's unsafe. maybe that's something that's coming along later when we get to the design phase, but what ideas have we come up with so far to make sure that this is both right-sized in terms of making sure it's, it's going to fit what we need in the community in terms of safety and in terms of just usability at night?
Thank you for the question, and very good question. So we have OHM here as well, but I know the lighting on the north end is meant to be more pedestrian in scale and lighting the path. There was some photometrics completed with determining, how to light it and for the field to be more pedestrian in scale. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know all the technical, but that's why we have Josh here tonight. So, Josh, I don't know to put you on the spot if you, okay.
Yeah, so we did a detailed photometric analysis of this entire corridor, looking at making sure we have proper light levels on both the roadway and the sidewalk, so that way it is a safe environment for people to walk at night. But we also want to make sure there's not going to be a lot of light spilling off the pathway onto private properties. So we were looking at those light levels and really selected our fixture type based off of that to make sure that we're going to have proper light levels, a lower light level on the path than you would the roadway, but you have a continuous lighting. And then how do we minimize what's going to be on private property? So when we made that selection, we balanced all those factors, made a determination of the fixture for there that you're going to see on the north side. As Trevor mentioned, it's going to be more of that smaller pedestrian scale light fixture. And then you're going to see on the south side more of that taller roadway type light fixture that's going to provide ample lighting on the roadway to make sure that then the cars are going to be safe driving along there.
It's good. Thank you. I appreciate the effort and energy put into that. I look forward to engaging with this project as it moves forward. Bless you. Last thing I'll note, and is there any other comments, questions on this before we? Okay, Mr. Brian.
Thanks, Chair. Just one quick question, and again, thanks to the county administration. I think this project is great. I do share Councilman Baker's concern about what the experience on that bridge might look like, especially when considering materiality and amenities. My one question is there no way to utilize any portion of the center of the roundabout for additional landscaping or public art?
Yeah, I can take that question on the roundabout. Now, this is going to be a smaller roundabout than those larger scale roundabouts that are going to have significant landscaping opportunities. So as Trevor mentioned during his presentation, the center of the roundabout is going to be fully mountable, and that's going to be a requirement should any large trucks want to make left-hand turns from Clifton into the Lake Road and into the neighborhoods. So you will see it's very low level. Now, there is opportunities to do, whether it be stamped concrete or colored concrete. We talked about having the Lakewood logo potentially. A lot of options were looked at, but at the end of the day, we need this to remain functional. This is a U.S. route. ODOT does have a lot of control over it. It's a limited access right away, so we needed to make sure that vehicular flow is going to work. And we also didn't want to be overly impactful to the neighboring properties. So that's why we tried to maintain all of this to stick within that existing right-of-way, so it's just limited property that needed to be acquired for this. And that's where we got the compromise of a smaller, more compact circle that does reduce the opportunity for landscaping. But there are going to be on the sides, and Trevor, I don't know if you wanted to talk more about some of the gateway treatments of, a Lakewood sign that's going to be off on the sign. So instead of some of that wow factor coming in the center of the roundabouts, you're going to have opportunities as you approach the roadway for the circle.
Great, thanks for that explanation.
Thank you all for this. One thing I wanted to highlight, and it was something that Mr. Bullock said, and I think, we've had different one-off conversations between members. Me and member Marks had a separate conversation about a project in her ward that kind of seemed to come out of, we just weren't aware of where it was in the process. There has to be a system we could set up with the planning director, planning department, maybe Director Byington can work with us directly, that we're just getting better communication as things are in the process, so that we just know how to communicate it to the public by extension. I think that would help to at least start to address some of what Mr. Bullock's getting at. And I know that's partially on our side too, because we have to help set up those processes, and it's on us to set up some of those. And I don't know if it needs to be in the actual code, but that's also an option. We could always set up, like we did with the requiring the finance department to give us individualized items that were going through the contract process. But I don't think it needs to necessarily be that. It could just be a communication periodically to different ward members about projects in the wards, and if they're larger projects, then to at-large or something like that. But anyway, I'll leave you all with that thought. I will move to recommend Resolution 2468 for adoption at our next council meeting.
Mr. Chair, what I'd like to suggest is that we either put a condition on your referral or just keep it in committee for the next time, given the fact that there's at least two features to talk about. One is the gateway aspects, whether on the roundabout or signage around it. I think you've got some interest by council here and good minds. I know Councilman Evans is a designer of those kinds of things. And the other is the kind of the keystone feature of this project is going to be the bridge. That's beautiful how much real estate is being devoted to it, but it would be, I think, fruitful to have more communication, conversation about what that looks like, how it can be successful. I think those are informal discussions, but to the degree that the county and the administration are open to those dialogues as we fill in the final elements of detail. I understand we're not at the stage in the process where we're starting from scratch on these things, but if there's some room to refine and improve, I'd like to have the opportunity for Lakewood City Council to continue that dialogue. Now, whether that means we keep it in committee or we refer it to the full council with the condition that we, recommend it for adoption upon receiving the plans and engaging in communication about those plans. I look to the committee members to consider.
Okay. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, I'd be fine with referring it back to whole council with the conditions that Councilman Bullock outlined.
Okay. So the motion's been made, it's not been seconded, but you can have a conversation.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of, and I welcome the county or the administration's thoughts on this, where we may not have a full plan before we have to approve this ordinance or resolution. So perhaps what the condition could be that upon when it goes out to bid, we get an update on what the final construction documents are, so we can at least provide some input. Typically, when they go out to bid, there's adults, as Trevor said. Hey, they'll give you a price for something, so if you can implement it, here's the price. So as you go into the construction season, what you'd have to go out and get. But I welcome, I don't know what the timing is for the administration's got to fill us on that. I guess my concern is I don't want to hold this up. This is such an important project.
Yeah.
I guess, so I'd do both and conditions. So I'd like to make a motion that we refer the resolution, is a resolution?
Yep.
Resolution of the full council for adoption upon receipt of the plans that city council may, upon receipt of the plans and with the understanding that we will also receive the construction bid documents. Is that yeah, understood. But I phrased the motion appropriately with the understanding that we will receive. So there's two parts.
All right. Well, let me have the administration. Let's first get a sense for where we're at with this and what the timeline is that's required for approval. And then we'll figure out what we can and should do in terms of approving it tonight or with what stipulations. Mr. Gordon.
Sure. Just a couple factors here that I just want to make everybody aware of. Number one, we're looking to have this agreement in place by the end of the year. So please keep that in mind as we're moving forward here. Secondly, please keep in mind that these plans are 90% complete right now. So I please ask that everybody understand that when we're sending the plans out. And then finally, please take into consideration when reviewing these plans that the number that was in my agreement, or in the letter, excuse me, that is included within the agreement in regards to the city's portion of this project is included in those 90% plans. So potentially I'm not going to say dramatic, but any changes that could be proposed could add to the cost for the city. So again, just things that I just want to make everybody up above there aware of. And again, we are looking to have this agreement signed, sealed, and delivered to the county as soon as possible so it can be completed by the end of the year. Thank you.
Would it make sense, members, to have another meeting? Is that even possible with our schedule? No. On this to discuss further. I just hate that we're having this and we're cutting into another committee meeting at this
You
point.
could have a 10-minute meeting that fits somewhere, but you don't have to. I'm sure we could have a very short committee meeting that would get the job done. But I think the motion that I posited would adhere to the timeline that Director Gordon just described. I think we're talking about 2 or 3 weeks of consultation, and then City Council would have had a chance to look at the elements that we've talked about here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bullock. Madam President?
Thank you. I'm just going to, suggestion here is that, to Vice President Baker's point, it'll take a while for after the award, and we saw that we had the slide with the timeline. So it's certainly within council's purview to schedule another meeting and request an update in that level of detail. So I'm wondering if, we go ahead and,
Post-adoption.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so that you could go ahead and move forward, so we're not holding up funding and the planning, and then just plan to schedule a meeting once we
Yeah.
have that.
So the logic of the motion is that we aren't receiving updates, but we're consulting with the plan before it's final. And there's a big difference. And if there's time pressure, we could have had this meeting earlier. But my proposal is not that this dialogue extend beyond December 31st. I think it's probably could be completed by November 30.
Again, I mean, whatever everybody decides, but I just want to make it clear that I need to have this agreement signed by all parties involved on our side by the end of December, and I don't want to blow that opportunity.
So I would further amend the resolution to refer this tonight for adoption, but with the caveats that Mr. Bullock or Mr. Baker had mentioned, that there be some formal review or some process where council will be involved before or when that contract is issued back in May. Was that where it was in the process? Sometime in May?
That would be correct. So just so both Trevor and I understand, City Council is looking for a full set of plans, which we can supply in the presentation from today. I want to make sure I have my notes correct. Is that correct?
That's from this meeting, correct, yep,
Okay.
earlier. But I'm prepared to approve this tonight. I just would, again, I'm just, want to err on the side of caution here. It's a great project. This isn't just a single grant. This is the actual kit and caboodle. It's important that we get it approved sooner than later. But I do agree that there's probably some process we could be more formally involved with as it proceeds, where council's getting updates, and maybe we even have some additional approvals or things that we are involved with later on. But how does that resolution sit with the committee? The motion, rather?
Mr. Chair, I think the motion I made earlier, maybe I could repeat, and
Yeah.
I think is compatible with what you said. So move to recommend adoption of full council upon receipt of the full plans and with the understanding that City Council be updated with construction and bid documents once available.
So it's receipt of the 90% plans that exist today, right? Not, okay.
So it's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Does administration have any more comments on this proposed plan, or law department even, on how this would work in terms of approving?
Thank you. Thank you.
Chief Story, it looks like you'd like to speak.
I'm not confused. Can you repeat what you just said, please?
Mr. Bullock, would you like to repeat the motion?
The motion before the committee is that we move to recommend adoption to the full council upon receipt of the plans and with the understanding that
That's fine.
city council receive construction and bid documents once available.
So that seems fine. Hold on. So that once we have those, we're recommending it for adoption. It could be adopted tonight, should we have those documents in hand. Are they available? Can we have those? Okay. Well, that motion has been made and seconded. Does that meet your? Okay. There being no more discussion on this, all in favor of referring this back to council with the recommendation of this committee upon receipt of the 2 documents mentioned by Mr. Bullock earlier, that it seems like we can get those pretty quickly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. With no further business before this committee, we are adjourned.
Okay, I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order at 7:21 on Monday, November 4th. In attendance tonight are Public Safety Committee members, Council Member Marks and Baker, in addition to the full City Council. And due to the lack of time left for the meeting before City Council, I'd like to recommend, make a motion to move this ordinance discussion to the full City Council meeting.
Second, and we also may want to dispose of our minutes after this motion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. So that motion has been made and approved. Our second order of business is to approve the minutes from the October 7th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I will second. And without any further questions or conversation, we will close the meeting of the public safety.
Thank you. And we'll start full council right on time, so please be here.
Every time you ask something like Roman burger, large waffle fry.
All right, we will call the full meeting of council to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. And while we do so, I just want to lift up our colleague Tristan Rader's father passed away on October 31st. Randall Duke Rader was a loving husband, father, and grandfather, and a teacher for 25 years. And we just want to be thinking of Tristan and his family at this time. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Baker.
Here.
Block.
Yeah, here.
Evans.
Here.
Keppel.
Here.
Marks. Here. Rader.
Here.
Strebig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held October 21st, 2024.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 1, report from Finance Committee regarding meeting held October 28th, 2024.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the Finance Committee met on October 28th to discuss the communication from President Keppel and me regarding the budget process for 2025. The purpose of the meeting was to have a council-led conversation about our shared priorities for the 2025 budget and to discuss the proposed schedule and format for the budget hearings. Each council member had a chance to highlight their budget priorities as well as to share anything that they would like for finance to include in the budget and the hearings. Many of the priorities discussed by council members were reflected in the communication, and President Keppel provided a thorough review of that as well. Finance Director Mahoney shared that finance staff have already met with each of the departments and that they're on their way to having the budget presentation and binder proposal ready for the November 18th docket. She added that progress has already been made on many of the priorities that council has highlighted. Finance Director Mahoney and I committed to work together to develop a living document to capture the deep dive questions that council members brought up during the meeting, as well as to capture the funding status of the priorities that council established in our winter retreat. While council realizes that there are critical infrastructure needs that the administration has to prioritize, we are hopeful that this meeting has set the groundwork for an ongoing dialogue to allow council a path to fund our programmatic and policy level priorities, which reflect the will of our constituents. We look forward to a productive and collaborative budget hearing process, which will officially kick off on November 18. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 2, report from Public Safety Committee regarding meeting held today, November 4th, 2024.
Councilmember Strebig.
Thank you. Tonight, the Public Safety Committee met to approve the minutes from October 7th and to move to discuss an agenda item which we move to back to this committee to discuss tonight on the floor.
Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. I'll just mention we were short on time, so we'll cover the upcoming ordinance that follows this in just a minute. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 3, Ordinance 19, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately, amending Section 3303, maximum speed limits assured clear distance ahead of the Lakewood codified ordinances to reflect the recently reduced speed limit on Lake Avenue.
And Councilmember Strebig, did you have some questions on this, or do you want to kick it over to law?
Yeah.
Or
Sure. Thank you, President Keppel. I just wanted to ask Director Vargo just to give some clarification on this ordinance for us.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. Councilperson Strebig. This really is an administrative item that the city needs to do to ensure that the citations written by Lakewood Police are written on city ordinance and not the state statute for sound financial reasons that benefit the city. Thank you.
And I have a note here that there's a little typo in the intro.
It should probably be 33303.
Yes. So it's just in the first paragraph. I think that's the only place, but it says 33.003. So I'll just move to amend that to 333.03.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then I'll go ahead and move to adopt as amended.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I just appreciate the Law Department and Chief for bringing this to our attention. Let's keep those dollars in-house. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 4, report from Public Works and Sustainability Committee regarding meeting held today, November 4th, 2024.
All right. Councilman Rader.
Thank you, Madam President. So the Public Works Committee met just a few moments ago. We discussed, first we approved the minutes, we discussed 2 resolutions. The first was 2467, which was applying for an ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resource grant, to help to offset some of the costs of improving the Winterhurst ice rink facility that the city owns. We heard a great presentation through Director Boss, Assistant Director Boss, about where we're at with the planning and development of the different things that have to do with improving the facility there. And we figured out kind of where that grant, or we heard where that grant fits into the process, and it'll be a little bit later on in 2026, and it helps to offset $900,000 that are intended for many different types of improvements, but include the roof and some of the things that need to get fixed and get upgraded. So happy to have that out there, and that presentation and that committee will live forever on our website, and people can check it out if they want to know what's going on with the ice rink. But we've referred that resolution back to the City Council, full City Council, for recommended adoption tonight. The second item was Resolution 2468. This was a resolution, or is a resolution rather, that allows the city to enter into an agreement with the county to manage the project that is the Clifton Lake Connector, half of which is in Lakewood, half of which is in Rocky River between Linda and Webb. Pretty big project, been going for a while. We heard the timeline for the project. This would allow the county to manage it following approval of the construction and planning, which will be involved with the city. It would also then allow, or it would pretty much, our share of this project would be 20%, up to 20%, or up to 1.4, a maximum of $1.4 billion cost sharing in that project as it moves forward. And the slated construction is going to be ending in 2026, but the engineering and all the work coming up to this point, I think the RFP should be issued sometime in May of next year, with planning and development of that continuing again all the way until December 2026. We did recommend this back to the full City Council for adoption with only if we have certain documents that were requested from the administration and from the county, as well as some participation in the process, getting updates along the way, and including participation in the process for the issuance of those contracts come April next year. Do I have that fully correct? I want to make sure that I'm fully encapsulating that how we recommended that back. Okay. That'll conclude my report from Public Works and Sustainability, and I move to accept that report, whatever it is.
To receive and file it? Okay, I'll second that. On the motion to receive and file, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, Resolution 2024-67, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor or director of planning and development to execute and file an application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and to provide all information documentation required to become eligible for possible funding assistance for the Winterhurst Ice Arena Capital Plan.
I'll move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll just add that it was a impressive update of all the work that's been going on there, and we appreciate all the hard work from both planning and public works and administration to bring Winterhurst back up to snuff. So appreciate that. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, Resolution 2024-68, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing an agreement between the City of Lakewood for the Lake Clifton Connector Project in the County of Cuyahoga, Ohio.
Right, and on this one, this is the one that we were saying adoption on receipt of those documents. And I know that Mr. Hunt was saying that he could send them to us. I don't know how quickly those that digital copy can be sent. Director Gordon, do you have that?
I will take a look at what I got, and if I can get it to you guys here momentarily, I will. If not, I will get it out first thing in the morning.
Okay. So in that case, then, and we do have Mr. Hunt is signed up to speak on this, but I think he left. I don't see him. Yeah, he probably just signed in for the committee meeting. Okay. So we don't have anyone else on this topic. Right. Okay. All right. So if we, let's just go ahead. I'll just move to defer.
Second.
Motion's made and
Yeah,
seconded.
In discussion.
Yeah, discussion. Then we can, as soon as, because that won't, we have time, you said, before the end of the year, so then we can do that at next council meeting once we have those documents. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to defer, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 7, communication from Planning Director Byington and Development Officer Wyman regarding fiscal year 25 HUD Annual Action Plan and Lakewood Citizens Advisory Committee fiscal year 25 federal funding allocation recommendations.
Director Byington?
Thank you, President Keppel. This is the annual resolution that you all see every year in regard to our CDBG and our ESG allocations. We're requesting a resolution authorizing the submittal of the annual action plan, which includes $1.8 million in CDBG funds and $160,000 in ESG funds. I believe that the communication that was sent along has the appropriation delegated into the different activities and the appropriate amount that we're recommending.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Just say I do appreciate, I think we're getting this maybe a little earlier than sometimes, and that's nice. So I appreciate that. So thank you, Mr. Wyman and the CAC committee for their work on this. So. All right, on the motion to receive and file the communication, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, Resolution 2024-69, a resolution to take effect immediately, authorizing and directing the mayor to submit the fiscal year 2025 one-year action plan of the 5-year consolidated plan, which includes dollar allocations and activities to be funded with federal CDBG and ESG resources and other entitlement funds received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, all amendments thereto, and all understandings and assurances contained therein, and incorporates the city's application to HUD for fiscal year 25 CDBG and ESG funds.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? I'll just say for the masses watching at home or anyone in the audience that if you're not familiar with this process, we have a Citizens Advisory Committee that reviews all of these different categories and makes recommendations back to us about how to allocate these federal funds. So it's a more inclusive process than many communities do, and we appreciate it. All right, on the motion to refer to finance, yes, Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. Thank you, Director Byington and Mr. Wyman. I see you in the audience. Look forward to supporting the motion and considering this as part of the several other components of the annual budget. It's my privilege again to once again chair the committee in the process. Mr. Wyman will communicate with you about timing for inviting you as well as the citizen leaders of the Citizen Advisory Commission. We may well invite you to come and the first night, which is, hold on, November 18, and Director Mahoney and I'm overdue to get you a response to the budget, the draft budget schedule. We'll maybe talk tonight a little bit during the announcements section of the meeting about some of that with council colleagues. Thanks.
All right, on the motion to refer to finance, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 9, communication from Fire Chief Fairbanks regarding medical equipment donation.
Chief Fairbanks.
Good evening. Dear President Keppel and members of council, attached, please find a resolution for your consideration requesting the Lakewood Fire Department donate no longer in use medical equipment and supplies to MedWish International. MedWish International is a Cleveland-based nonprofit that ships medical equipment to recipients in 115 countries to provide humanitarian aid to those in need. MedWish serves populations within medically marginalized communities, both locally and internationally, supported by medical missions, clinics, hospitals, and other nonprofit organizations. MedWish International does not accept expired medical supplies, but will accept usable supplies destined for landfills. At this time, we only request to donate 4 LifePak 12 monitors, which are cardiac defibrillators, and associated accessories, as we currently utilize the LifePak 15, but we are also requesting permission to donate additional future surplus supplies. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Chief Fairbanks, what have we historically done with older, out of curiosity?
It goes in the garbage.
Oh, okay. Well, seems like a better use.
Yes, it does.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion to receive and file the communication? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 10, Resolution 2024-70, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the donation of surplus medical equipment and supplies to MedWish International.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? No? All right. Thank you for looking for better use for these materials. All right. No further discussion? All right. On the motion to adopt, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 11, liquor notice, Wine Dive LLC at 16918 Detroit Avenue.
Director Vargo, do we have a report on this?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I think we should just defer that. Now, we've already did not object to a very similar application. There's been, as I understand it, an ownership change. We just need to follow up with protocol, and we'll submit it to council again. That's yet to be done, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right, we are at public comment. And for public comment, I just ask when we call your name, you can come up to the microphone, push the button so it turns green, address the chair. You'll have 5 minutes, and please keep your remarks civil and avoid personalities. All right, first up to speak is Trudy Hutchison. Welcome, Trudy.
Good evening. I'm Trudy Hutchinson. I live at 2091 Lincoln in Lakewood. And I am writing an article about the Anti-Racism Task Force. And I have been completely unsuccessful in getting anybody to respond to my requests for information. Gone to the task force, gone to city council, nothing. So last Monday, I went to the Anti-Racism Task Force meeting, and I sat there and I waited. This was the 6 o'clock meeting. When no one showed up by 7, I went to the guard and asked whether there was a meeting, and he told me that it looked like it had been postponed till 7. Sat there another hour, nobody came. So I still am writing an article about the Anti-Racism Task Force, and my list of questions is getting longer. And the first of those questions is this the way that Lakewood shows up for the people that it's trying to make feel comfortable in this community? That's my first question. Now, I am aware that the Anti-Racism Task Force is a creature of the executive branch, but the way I read the mission statement is that City Council is a partner, And so my questions are, is there a partnership? Is there some productivity? Is there some cooperation? Is there some collaboration? And whether there's a task force at all. So I'm hopeful that someone will get back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize if you've reached out to me. I have not seen that, but I will follow up. Okay, I will definitely happy to follow up. And we don't normally do questionnaire, but just on a quick note on this one, the ARTF definitely does meet, and we're currently actually in the middle of a racial equity planning process that they are part of as well, but I will follow up with you for sure on that. So thank you for coming and for your concern on that issue. All right, and then next up is Mr. Zakum. Welcome back.
Hello, I am here again to follow up on my previous letter and prior speech, if you can call it that, regarding the downtown development. And as I've pointed out in my letter, I've asked the council, as this moves forward, to consider doing something that will benefit the average Lakewood taxpayer. That could mean having Casto contribute to the fixed sum bond levies, making housing fees more proportional, reducing permitting fees. Perhaps, since there's more taxpayer money coming in, water and sewer rates could be re-examined. As I have had experience in commercial real estate, my experience is typically that the bonds that are funding the TIF are usually purchased by high-income net worth individuals to avoid income taxes. Frequently, the corporation that receives the TIF, and I don't think it's any different here, is owned by high net worth individuals. The low income housing is only provided for a period of time. I get that 10 years, 15 years seems like a long period, but eventually that goes away, and it doesn't benefit those tenants when it goes away. People can find articles by Googling low-income housing tax credit. In a number of cases that has expired, and those apartments are raised to market rates, and those tenants have to leave. No one thought to provide them with job training, babysitting or elder care, so the recipient can go back to school and find a better paying job, or any means to move themselves up in society and repay the benefits by paying taxes to society that society gave them. And I don't think a TIF would be any different. And I just don't see any benefit to the average Lakewood taxpayer. I get that adding more apartments that are non-subsidized, supply and demand and whatnot, but I think those are going to be high-end apartments. I think is a pretty reasonable guess. And my understanding is from studies that adding high-rate market apartments doesn't do much other than slowing the growth of rental rates, and certainly doesn't stop it. So at the end of the day, again, I think it's important to step back and ask, what is the average taxpayer going to get out of this project? Thank you.
Thank you. I always appreciate your thoughtful comments, so thank you for being here. And certainly, I think we're all definitely considering all the different benefits to the Lakewood community as we consider this project, so
Madam
good points.
President?
Yes, Councilman Bullock.
Mr. Zach, I owe you a calendar date. Could we talk immediately after the meeting and either talk tonight or pick a time when we can actually meet? I'm overdue on confirming that with you. My apologies. Thanks. And thank you for your thoughtful comments.
All right. So we don't have anyone else signed in to speak for public comment. Announcements from colleagues. Councilman Bullock.
Mine are the workaday schedule stuff rather than the fun remember to vote category, but I'll defer to others on that. So, council members, I can't get my Wi-Fi working, otherwise I would have emailed you a proposed draft, and also the administration, the same thing. I'll do that tonight when I get home and I can get the Wi-Fi working. But it resembles what we've talked about before. And what I'm going to email you is the draft, not the final. We've got to confer a little bit to make sure that the speaking order can fit and all that. But what I'd like to get your feedback on would be, A, does this work in broad terms? We're essentially looking at three major hearings on Monday, November 18, Monday, November 25, Monday, December 9, and then the final night would be a shorter meeting, which at least half of which is reserved for administrative refinements to the actual budget legislation. Right now, we don't have a proposed Saturday. What we could do, if we need the time, is one of two options. We could either stay later on one of those Mondays, or we could potentially use Wednesday, December 11 from 6 to 8, which had previously been penciled on our calendars as a potential night for interviews for the maybe open seat over to this direction after 24 hours from now. But the council president opened that time back up. So the question for council members are, if we need the time, would you rather stay late on a Monday or 2 Mondays, a little bit later on 2 Mondays, or carve out the time Wednesday? And Councilwoman Marks can't do that night, but we're not suggesting this year a Saturday, which I'm reminded, apparently we haven't done for a few years. We used to do that on a somewhat regular basis, not that anybody's eager to do that during the holidays. But so those are the questions. The other point would be, we're trying to shoehorn all of that budget deliberation into not all that long. It's over those 3 nights is something like 3.5 plus 3 plus 1.5 is something like 7 or 8 hours. The only way that would work is if we work with the administration to really truncate, or not truncate, but to compress. The normal budget presentations have been, half or more of the time has been the presentations from the administration. Those are helpful because there's a lot to cover, but I think the real valuable decision-making portion is the Q&A, the dialogue, and the ability to dig in. So what I'm going to try to request is that the administration keeps to about 1/3 of the allotted time the presentations, and we reserve 2/3 for the dialogue. That'll work if everything goes perfectly. Typically, it doesn't go perfectly. Now, I'm usually one of the filibustering council members. I'll be less able to do that because I'm supposed to be the facilitator and the MC, so that might help. That's maybe not a question. Feedback is welcome right now, or informally afterwards. Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, to Councilman Bullock's point, there'll be some junior Cavs that are upset if Coach Baker isn't there on Wednesday nights. So if you're able to keep it all on Monday night, personally, I'd prefer a marathon session to having a different evening event, but I also I'm one of 7, so.
Madam President, I concur with Member Baker. I think my potential soon-to-be schedule may eat up some of my midweeks, so I think Mondays make a lot of sense. I'm a night hawk. I don't care. I'll stay late.
Yep. I'm seeing lots of nods from colleagues about, and from the administration, I'm seeing a few nods as well, rather just stay on Mondays rather than come in another day. Yeah, we'll get some food. Director Gordon. Yeah, and then.
Thank you, Madam President. Just so I'm aware from the Public Works perspective, and I'm certainly not going to speak for my colleagues, but with presentation-wise, Councilman Bullock, are you looking for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? What are you looking for from us so then I know how to be prepared?
Can I get that to you in writing tonight? So that rather
Sure.
than try to tell, but for Public Works is one of the stars of the show. In fact, maybe the star of the show, not to take anything away from the finance director, but you have not only a large department of operating every darn thing under the sun, but also the capital budget, which is also quite important. So we'd like to make sure to allocate sufficient time because that tends to generate a lot of questions and is worth the time. We also got some feedback that we'd like to do that earlier than later in the budget schedule. So what I'm going to propose is what makes sense from our perspective. I think we will appreciate the finance department's response because I don't know your schedules and what works for the mayor and all of you. So that's why it's going to say draft. But I'll put the suggestion in. You're right. Like if you're expected to have 60 minutes of presentation with footnotes, that's 1 degree. We're not going for that. I think we're trying to get to the just enough. Sometimes it's more difficult to prepare, actually, but we'll do our best in a collegial way. Thanks.
Dr. Dillinger, did you have, you want to say something?
Oh, I just had a thought on the scheduling. Thank you, Madam President. And similar to Councilman Baker, I know Saturday was thrown out there. I know many of us have kids and weekends can be very tough with also extracurricular activities. So I prefer Mondays as well for that reason. Thank you for considering that.
All right, good. All right, thank you. Sometimes it's easier just to hash out on the floor. Okay, so any other announcements from Vice President Baker?
I'm not going to steal your shine about tomorrow, but I will say, generally speaking, anyone watching out there, anyone on council colleagues, the Lakewood City Schools are doing a elementary planning task force. I'm sure you've seen it on social media, but I just want to elevate so that we're all aware of it. 2 meetings have already occurred at Emerson and Roosevelt. November 7th is a meeting at Grant. November 20th at Lincoln. November 25th at Harrison. December 3rd at Horseman. December 11th at Hayes. So really important community conversations going on about our walking district and what it's going to look like. So the task force is taking comments and input, so please educate yourself and go and learn and give comments. Thank you.
Other announcements from colleagues? Announcements from the administration? Director Dillinger.
Thank you. Since I have all of council present right now, I sent an email this afternoon. Open enrollment starts Monday, so if you have any questions, Leah and I are available to help. Or we are using the new ADP system as well, so if you have issues registering for any reason, you can certainly contact us or IT. So that's all I had. Thank you.
All right. I just have a couple announcements. One is council is currently looking for, we're accepting applications for the Architecture Board of Review vacancy coming up next year, and I know the administration has also posted some calls for applications for other boards and commissions, so folks who are interested in volunteering, please check those out. They're on the city website. And then I also, of course, as others have alluded, tomorrow is very important, Election Day. Polls open at 6:30 a.m. If you have not already voted, please make sure to get out and vote. It is the best way to influence your community and have your voice heard, and these elections are extremely important. And for those who vote at Lincoln, you can come see me. I'll be out there all day in front of Lincoln, and I believe Councilwoman Strebig will be at Roosevelt. So, and probably Councilman Rader will be floating around too. So, you never know who you'll see at your polling place. Come see us. All right. Any other announcements? All right. No further business. We're adjourned.